Maybe we didn't do anything. Maybe nothing seems to have affected us. Whether you have or whether you haven't, it's not lost. What happens from here on forward, from today, could make all the difference. Now, I'm going to go over something briefly that happened today, but I'm going to try to focus on something that happens at the end of the week. You guys know what happened today? Today was Palm Sunday earlier today, right? You know, entering the city of Jerusalem, you know about the branches and the clothes and everything and Hosanna in the highest. You guys know all that. There's lots of energy, excitement, and joy, and what we saw was a very humble Lord Jesus Christ. But after he goes into the city, he goes into the temple. And what does he do in the temple? He's flipping over tables and yelling at people, and he's so upset. It's a very different picture of Christ in just a short time. That's not something that we're used to seeing in our Lord Jesus Christ. He hasn't done that before. So what caused him to be so upset? What were the people doing in the temple that bothered him so much? They were selling things. Thank you. They were selling things and adding profits to what they were selling, which was supposedly for the temple. What made him upset was that the people in the temple didn't get it. And that's going to be a theme, and I'm going to talk about that. You understand, the Jews from all over came to Israel. They came to Jerusalem, they came to the temple. They weren't just in Israel. They came from faraway lands, and they came to offer sacrifices for the Passover. It was the greatest feast for the Jews. For centuries, this was the big thing. They were remembering the amazing thing that God did. You know, the original Passover, when they were in Egypt and Christ delivered them from the Egypt and the angel of death passed over and all the Jews were saved and delivered from this great power of Egyptian rulers. It's an amazing thing. Why all the people came? Because it was how amazing their God was and how compassionate He was. But then there were some people who kind of ignored all the amazing thing that God did that was centuries before and kind of thought, well, what can I do for me? It bothered him that the temple that was supposed to be a house of prayer to honor a holy, righteous God who wanted His people to be righteous, they took God's greatness out of it and they didn't get it. And that's going to be a theme throughout the week. That people just didn't get it. We're going to see this in the Pharisees. Christ did so many incredible things throughout His service, but at the beginning of the week, He raised a man from the dead. He'd been dead for 4 days. That's as dead can be. That's an incredible deed. And the Pharisees saw it. So many people agreed that this is what happened, but they didn't want to acknowledge it. So they said, I can't believe this. Now everyone is following Him. They were upset. They were saying, we have to do something because people are following Him because He did this miracle. As opposed to following Him themselves. At the end of the week, they tried to put Jesus Christ on trial. They couldn't even find 2 people to say any wrong thing about Him that they agreed upon. And still they couldn't see that God's hand must have been in all that had happened. And yet they didn't get it. They didn't change. And they went all the way to put Him onto the cross. And then we see this same thing in Judas. We all know the story of Judas, right? Judas is so famous in our church, he gets his own hymn. He gets his own hymn all just for him. It's a curse, but it is just for him. And if you think about it, he was so close to Christ. He saw everything that He did for 3 years. He even healed people. He even cast out demons. When Christ sent them out, they went to the villages and they said, even the demons were listening to us. So here is someone who received power from Christ to heal people and cast out demons. Anyone here been able to do that on their own? If I was able to heal someone, I would be amazed. Especially if I knew that someone gave me that power. You would think, why would you turn on that person? With all the warnings that he had, I don't think Judas could say one thing that Christ did negative toward him. I imagine in all that time, he couldn't quote one bad thing that Christ did towards him. Nothing but mercy, grace, forgiveness, and patience. But he wouldn't change. And it sounds crazy that someone could get to be that way. I mean, at least it wouldn't be us, right? There's an incident that happens at the end of the week that I wanted to focus on just for a minute. I'm kind of giving you a little bit of an overview of some of the themes that are in Holy Week. And this one happens on Good Friday. You guys know what happens on Good Friday? Christ is tortured brutally. He's whipped. He has the crown of thorns. He's naked. And he's hung between two thieves. We all know about the right-hand thief, Demas. Guess what? He gets his own hymn. But this is a glorious hymn. It's a beautiful hymn. The reason he gets a hymn is because he saw something and he got it. What did he see? He saw the earth get dark. He saw the sun hide its rays. He felt the earthquake. But he also saw the soldiers. He saw the Pharisees. They were all mocking Christ. He himself was doing the same. And then he understands that this man that's next to him, who did absolutely nothing wrong, there was no crime that he committed, he saw that this man was treated way worse than they were. What he must have noticed, that this man who committed no crime was treated way worse than they who had lived a whole life of being criminals. Now, when people were crucified and they were hung on a cross, do you want to know what their reaction was? They cursed everyone. They cursed everything. The foulest things came out of their mouth. They were saying the worst things because they were in such agony and they were being tortured. It was miserable and humiliating. So here are the two thieves and they see this man, Jesus Christ. What was the first thing he said? He could hardly breathe. It was hard for him to say anything. First thing he said was, Father, forgive them, because they don't know what they're doing. He takes care of his mother. He says all kinds of blessings and kindness and not any cursing. It was unheard of. So the right-hand thief, he sees something extraordinary. He says, all that I'm seeing, I have to make a decision. St. Demas, he didn't owe Christ anything. And he didn't need to defend him, and he didn't need to show him any loyalty. But he felt, how could I not? How could I just ignore all that I've seen? So you know what he does. He makes an incredible statement. He says, remember me, O Lord, when you come into your kingdom. He says this to a man hanging on the cross who can barely breathe. Because of what he saw, he said there must be something amazing. And we know the response. Christ said what? Today you will be with me in paradise. Now, I didn't mean to talk about the right-hand thief. That wasn't my point. I wanted to talk about the left-hand thief. We don't know his name. And I really don't understand. See, both thieves, they pretty much had the same view. They saw pretty much the same things. What makes one person make an incredible statement, he steals the kingdom. The Bible doesn't tell us that the left-hand thief said anything good. And when you think about it, both of the thieves, they're about to die in a few hours. It's going to be miserable. They're going to be thrown out and they're going to let birds and whatever eat. It's going to be terrible. This is their last few hours to do something. And so the left-hand thief sees the right-hand thief say something to Christ, and Christ makes a promise to him. The left-hand thief sees it and does nothing. Couldn't you imagine? Like, would it have cost him anything to just give it a chance? He could have said anything. It wouldn't have taken him much energy. He could have said something. And yet he saw the same thing the right-hand thief did, and he didn't change at all. I mean, you think, what did you have to lose? Why wouldn't you change? I guess my question is, he saw all these amazing things, same thing that the other right-hand thief did, and he didn't get it. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Not many people look at a crucified man who can barely breathe and speak, say, oh, he must have a kingdom. He may not have known much about the resurrection or that there was a hope. But in the end, he chose not to change. The right-hand thief did. It sounds ridiculous, but it's not as ridiculous as those of us who come to Holy Week. We come day after day. We see the most incredible acts in the history of the universe, and yet many of us may not get it either. We know that this amazing act, it actually was directly for us. It was totally out of love. It was totally out of goodness and mercy. And then the power and the glory of the resurrection, we see it all. We know about it. No one could have imagined such an act being done on the behalf of someone else. We know its benefits. We know that we are going to enter into a kingdom that we would never see without this. It's a hope that we don't deserve. It was just given to us freely. And yet, though we've seen all of this, many of us won't consider changing. It's like we don't get it either. Like it was just a story that happened thousands of years ago and it doesn't affect me. So we come and go hour by hour through all these events, and somehow we decide, I don't think it's worth it for me to change anything. So let me ask you, why even bother coming this week? And what is the purpose? This is really what I wanted to talk to you about. Do you ever have a situation where a parent or a teacher or a coach, they make you do something that's really difficult and they tell you, you want to know why I'm doing this? After the whole thing, and you say, yeah, please tell me why. And then they tell you, and you're like, oh, why couldn't you have told me in the beginning? I might have appreciated it more. Well, why don't we start at the end of the week and begin to appreciate what we're moving towards? Like, why are we even here? Because if you go through the whole week and you never get it, then you've missed out tremendously. What is the purpose of the week? It's not so that you could sing the longest hymns recorded in the history of mankind. It isn't for you to feel more religious because you've said 500 Thok Teti Goms in a week, or you spent 50 hours in church. It's not so that you could shed a tear on Good Friday because you see someone suffering physically. And just like Abuna said, it's not a play, it's not a spectator sport. It's not something we just watch and then get up and leave. Let me ask you, are you going to be saved because you attended all the prayers in this week? Like, is this what saves you? All of this is a reminder of how amazing your God is. And the goal is to inspire a response to Him and His deeds. It's to inspire a response. If there's no response after all the things that you see, just like all the people that were there at Christ's time that didn't do anything, if you don't respond, then maybe you just don't get it. We hear such amazing things about Christ this week, and yet somehow we say, I'd rather just make this all about me and my happiness. I want to know what I can get out of it. I've already seen this happen, but some of us are joking around with our friends during the prayers. We're playing on our phones. We've got our video games out while we're here in church discussing the most amazing things that have ever happened. We're saying hymns with our mouths, but we're saying, let me keep my heart way out of it. Let me not pay attention to the sermons. Let me just not be serious. Let me start thinking about the food that I'm going to eat next week. I want to move beyond this season. I want to put it behind me, and I just want to be done with it. Well, what kind of response could we possibly have to this week? What would be appropriate? There are so many. I'm only going to name 2. But it would be a shame, with all the possibilities of responses, not to have a single good one. You understand that? If you're going to be here all week and witness the most amazing thing, hour by hour, and not change one bit, that would be a shame. Now, you may agree that this week can be exhausting. Day and night, Good Friday all day, all night that night, 5 hours on Saturday night. Do you realize that part of the purpose of all the prayers this week is for it to be exhausting for you? That's actually part of the purpose. It's supposed to exhaust you. Many of us say we're followers of Christ. We want to live for Him. But we aren't really willing to be exhausted for Him. This week is just a small taste of what? A taste of what? Of the smallest amount of what Christ was exhausted for in doing this for you. Do you guys know how amazing it is to be exhausted for Christ? That is such an amazing thing. You're willing to be exhausted for things and people that matter most to you. When you think about the people who have exhausted themselves most in your life, it's probably your parents. Because why? You matter more to them than anything else. And you probably have exhausted yourself for certain things that you want. But what is amazing is when we exhaust ourselves for others. There are some examples of this throughout the week. There are several instances where people are washing Christ's feet. They're exhausting themselves. One of the women, the amount of perfume, the disciples say, man, a whole year's, this is 300 denarii. That's like a whole year's worth of salary. What a waste. That could have been given to the poor. And Christ said, no, this was great. This was for me. This refreshed me. She exhausted her finances and herself for Christ. And Christ said this was so precious. Even Christ did the same when He exhausted Himself to wash the disciples' feet. And even Peter saw it and says, no, I can't let you do that for me. And Christ says, I won't have it any other way. I have to exhaust myself for your sake. And I want you to realize it. Now, I'm not asking you to be exhausted this week only. Can you be exhausted for Christ beyond this week? I mean, that would be a great response. When was the last time you were physically exhausted for Christ's sake? Serving someone in need. When was the last time you were cleaning something for someone, or you're lifting something for someone, you're driving all around town for someone? When was the last time where you were sick and you were taking care of someone else's needs? I saw this movie. It's called Tortured for Christ. It was about these Christians in Romania who were kept in prison, communist prison, for a long time. And they went through a lot of things. I mean, they used to get the smallest portions of food every day. It was like tiny. And yet when there was a new prisoner coming, they would take a tithe of the small amount of food they got and give it to the new people because they weren't used to it yet. They would exhaust, and they all had tuberculosis, which at that time was a disease which killed. A lot of them didn't make it out of the tuberculosis ward. And yet while they're dying of this horrible disease, you want to know what they were doing? Exhausting themselves for the sake of others. It was such a beautiful scene. When was the last time you stayed up all night with someone? That's an amazing exhaustion when you do it, especially for Christ's sake. But let me ask you, can you also be spiritually exhausted for someone? Absolutely. When was the last time you were so spiritually exhausted praying for someone in your life? When was the last time you were so spiritually exhausted fasting for someone? When you were reaching out for them? What an amazing thing to be exhausted for the one who was exhausted for you. That's one response. Being exhausted for the one who is exhausted for you. The second one is this: how about loving the way you were loved? St. John tells us in his epistle that we love because he first loved us. He did it first. And so we're responding to that love. Christ told his disciples after washing their feet, on the night before he's about to go to the cross, he washes their feet and he tells them, I want you to love others just as I loved you. That's the one thing I'm asking for you. People are going to know that you're my people, that you're my followers, you're my disciples if you are loving people the way I loved you. If you respond to my love, if you do unto others just as I did to you. That's what he asked. Respond in the way that I just did this to you. Let me specify the type of love a little bit more. See, it wasn't an easy kind of love that he showed us this week. It was a very hard kind of love. You know the kind where you're showing kindness to the ones who are treating you with anger or hatred or rudeness? It's the kind where you're giving kindness and they're not returning it. It's the kind where you do the kind thing first and you don't look back to see how they're going to respond. It's where you just give it out. You are a love dispenser. Even when it isn't for holy people. A lot of us are willing to do difficult things for amazing people. But what does the Bible tell us about Jesus Christ? He demonstrated his love for us while we were sinners. He didn't say, let me wait till they're holy and doing all the good things and then I will die on the cross for them. He says, even though they don't show me any kindness, they don't honor me with their lips, their hearts are far from me, even though they're not following my commandments, I will still be the first one to show them my love. I'm so glad that he didn't wait for us to be good for him to respond with love first. Now, a big part of that love encompasses forgiveness. And it's something that we actually say how many times in the Holy Week? Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trust. It's like a response thing, right? Like we're saying, I'm going to ask you to reward me according to the way that I've responded to your forgiveness. The way you've forgiven me, please don't stop. I'm going to forgive others as much. Do we need to talk about this forgiveness? He says, forgive as you were forgiven, which is an incredibly high level of love. It's where people do something wrong to you, as we did to him, not once or twice, but over and over and over. You know the story that Christ said? It's a parable of the king who had servants, and he was trying to settle accounts with them, and he found that one of them owed him 10,000 talents. I'll tell you what that means in a minute. 10,000 talents is a lot. And then the guy said, I don't have anything. He said, put him in prison, and him and his family. He says, I don't have anything. I can't. Please. He got on his knees and begged him, please let me go. Please forgive me. Please have mercy on me. And because of the king's compassion, he let him go. So he gets out, and then someone owes him 100 denarii. 100 denarii. I'm going to tell you what 100 denarii is compared to talents. So 1 denarii is 1 day's wages. Like if you work for a day, you get 1 denarii. So someone owed him 100 denarii. You want to know how much he owed the king? 10,000 talents. 1 talent is 6,000 denarii. So he owed 60 million denarii. And he begged for forgiveness. And there's no way he would ever, in 100 lifetimes, pay for it. Yet for 100 denarii, he wasn't willing to forgive. Can you imagine? It sounds so petty. I don't know how many times someone might have sinned against you or you said, I can't let go. I'll be honest, it's terribly difficult if you don't realize what was done for you 1,000 times over. There are times and there are people in our lives where it has become very difficult. But unless you understand this week, you're not going to be able to. But once you get it, then you will be able to love. Now this love has to be directed towards God's children. The sinful, the angry, the hurtful, the inconsiderate, the rude, selfish people of this world. And it will come at a cost to you. It's not going to be easy. It's going to hurt your ego. It's going to be emotionally difficult. But it is so beautiful. It's a beautiful sight in the eyes of everyone around you and the eyes of God. But as much as I want you to love other people, if at the end of this week you didn't have a greater love for God, that would be sad. How can I convince you to fall in love with your Savior? I mean, how much explanation do I have to do to... You're drowning. You are literally unable to gasp for air. You have no hope of any comfort or pleasure after this life. And zero. Except for this act. And yet, we say it's so hard to love God. Of all the good qualities you could ever want in anyone, they're all there. And of all the negative qualities you wouldn't want in someone, those are in us. And who is it harder to love? And yet He does. St. Paul says in 2 Corinthians, he says, the love of Christ compels us. It pushes me. It forces me to do something. He says, I can no longer live for myself, but I have to live for the one who died and rose again. I'll give you one practical example for this week. Abuna Loa taught us this years ago. You know what happened on the night before Palm Sunday? Yesterday was Lazarus Saturday. Then at night, where does Christ spend the night? Bethany. You know what Bethany means? House of the miserable. And what happened with Christ that night? They washed His feet. He found rest. He found rest in this place because someone washed His feet. That was a sign of love to Him. You say, well, how can I love Christ? In this week, let your heart and your house be a Bethany. At the end of the Holy Week, every night, go home and say, dear Lord, come to my house. And spend some time with Him and say, I want to comfort you as you have done for me. I adore this amazing thing that you're doing for me. And I just want to show you I love you back. And I'm going to just stand here in your presence and praise you. And that would be an amazing response to God's love. I do pray that you get it. Not at the end, but that you get it from now. This week is beautiful and it's amazing and it can impact your life if you really make an effort to participate. May it be a blessed week for all of us now and forever. Amen.